Hi, this is Jess Iantiorio, and thanks for taking the time today. We're going to go through a really brief overview of this new pitch deck. This isn't intended to be a full overview of messaging and positioning for the Acquia network. It's intended to be an overview of a brand new pitch deck with information around what content is in here and how should you use it and when should you use it. So to get started, we're going to start off with the Acquia network. And this has been repositioned. It was formerly a suite of tools to help you manage and extend your site. And now we're positioning the Acquia network as total application assurance. We want to focus on the value of all the tools and knowledge resources that can help customers feel like the quality of their application is assured by Acquia, thanks to being an Acquia network customer. So let me just take you through the flow of the deck, and then we'll walk through what's in the appendix. So the first thing you want to start off with is setting a sense of camaraderie with your prospects, a sense of understanding around the things that are painful for them. You'll start with the two biggest concerns of IT teams are, is my site up, and is it performing as expected? And this is a great quote from Forrester Research, which says, a slow business service is no better than no business service. So it really speaks to the importance of having an application that performs well, rather than just an application that's up. So it's not just about site uptime, it's about the quality of the application and therefore the quality of the experience. And you can also talk about a few pretty visible failures which have cost companies hugely, whether it's in brand and image damage or actual revenue. This is an example from the Super Bowl in the United States this year. There were lots of commercials. People pay millions of dollars to have those commercials run, and 13 websites that were tied to main brands went down during the Super Bowl because they were running promotions for things and they just hadn't planned accordingly. So it's a really public example of when things go wrong. There's some great quotes here that you can mention. Coke chase site down, infrastructure and marketing fail. How do you spend $4 million on an ad that sends people to the website that's down? I love this one. Just admit that the site crashed because you didn't plan for the bandwidth overload. Let's go see what Pepsi has. So that's sort of an example of the perfect storm. You think you planned for your best day, you didn't, you failed, and the cost of failure is huge. And even though people know this, they oftentimes might think it won't actually happen to them, but it happened to all of these organizations, and these are some of the largest organizations in the world with access to millions of dollars in resources to make sure these things don't happen. So there's just a few other anecdotes you can give here to really drive home the point that it's important to have your site up and running and have a great experience. So we talk about the 5 primary points of web failure, and these all lead into different areas of value proposition for the Acquia network. We formerly had 3 main areas of value, which was tool, support, and knowledge, and now we're taking into 5 buckets. So these 5 primary points of web failure lead into those 5 buckets. The first is lack of expertise causes development delays and flaws. Next is faulty deployment processes, exposed failures. The next is launch preparation misses the mark. Fourth is customer experiences are substandard. And fifth is poorly constructed code requires extensive maintenance. So what this leads us to is talking about a life cycle. So there are different things that happen throughout the Drupal application life cycle where you really need to be on your game, or else those 5 areas of failure come into play. So the first is having the right level of education. The next is, in having that education, you know how to create the right application that doesn't have failures in its design. Once that application is ready to go, you need it optimized so that the performance on the website is what it should be. And then there are ways you're going to want to extend your website so that it has all the great functionality people have come to expect in today's web experiences, like a great search experience, for instance. And lastly, you want to make sure that everything has been done that's necessary so that by the time the application is launched successfully, maintenance doesn't become a full-time job. And for those 5 areas, this is where our education comes into play through the knowledge base, our development platform and tools, our optimization tools that we have built as well as partnered with other organizations to bring to our customers, the tools that we've built that help extend the experience, and finally, our support offering and other maintenance assistance we offer. So that's teeing up the entire presentation. So you have established a sense of, we know it's important for your site to perform well and that it doesn't fail. And we think to get there, you're going to need to avoid the 5 primary points of failure. And in order to avoid those 5 primary points, we're going to talk about how we're going to help you in each stage of that life cycle. So you've queued up the Acquia network, and now you're just going to go through each section. So I'm not going to detail all the content that's in these sections. Please reach out to Brian House while I'm on maternity leave if you need help understanding the contents of these slides. I'm just going to zip through it, and then we'll talk about the appendix. So this is essentially stage one. What makes a web project successful is expertise at your fingertips, and this goes back to the education bubble we were talking about earlier. You'll notice in the right-hand corner of all of these slides, you'll see a gray bubble that has which stage in the life cycle you're talking about. So it keeps you on par, and then there are, if you add slides in, you know where you should add them in from the appendix. We still want to open with the knowledge base, but the point here is Drupal education yields great design. You can talk about what's in the knowledge base, talk about Drupalize mean, build a module, etc. And then we move on to stage two, fast and flawless deployments. What we've done that's different here is we've broken the value of insight into several different areas of the pitch rather than just having it fit in one by itself. But we've moved on from educate, we're in create, and in the creation phase, we want all of our customers to be actively working with insight because we think it leads to quality assurance for the development process and making sure the code is where it needs to be. So talk about insight here as something that will help QA your development exercise and make sure performance, security, and best practices, all of that's the way it needs to be before you launch your site. Another thing you can mention in the creation phase is our cloud UI. So formerly, you would never bring up Acquia Cloud in a network-only pitch. But now that we're going to be close to launching Acquia Cloud free tier, that makes at least a dev and staging environment available to every single Acquia network customer, whether you're a cloud customer or not. So you still want to be able to bring up this as one of the workflow tools that will help you in the creation phase to prevent any type of failure. So now we're moving on to the third phase, which is optimize. And again, you're going to talk about Acquia Insight. You're going to talk about how the system will proactively allow you to know what you're doing well or not so well and give you information around how to improve it and make sure you optimize the performance. But you're also going to talk about these 5 third-party tools, which are all available through freemium models. So we have slides in the back of the deck which talk about more about each of these vendors and what their offer is specifically. But at this stage in the pitch, you're just talking about these tools are available through a freemium model, and they all relate to optimizing your site experience. So we're moving on to the fourth stage, which is optimizing the customer experience or extending what's available to on your website. And so here's where we want to talk about Acquia Search. So we think a great user experience starts with a great search experience. You'll talk about Acquia Search here. You'll also talk about Mollum as another product that Acquia owns that helps ensure content quality, helps block spam, helps allow organizations to embrace social on their websites. So you can talk about Mollum, what their technology is, the content moderation platform, etc. And then we have another slide that talks about third-party tools that, again, you had mentioned. These are all available through a freemium model. And for any of these tools that people are interested in, you'll pull the slide from the back of the deck, which gives more information on the tool as well as the offer. So now I'm moving on to the last piece, so the 5th area in the life cycle, and that's maintenance. So again, we have a separate slide for Insight here because there are a lot of different pieces of value to Insight that don't get talked about separately. One of the main pieces of value is it actually tracks what version of Drupal you're running in every single module you're running as well, or distro. So it actually tracks for all the modules you may have on your site, which could be 70 or 80 or 90. Where are they? Do they have any updates? If so, what's the difference? And we proactively help our customers understand what they might want to consider with that update. And if they're a remote admin, we can make the update for them. If they're not, it's still a huge time savings in terms of maintenance because the complexity of keeping track of the modules and whether there are updates or not is pretty massive. So this aspect of Insight is very helpful, and that's why we wanted to showcase it in the maintenance section. Here's where we'll talk about support. This is not really new content, but we want to talk about how our support team follows the sun, many office locations. We're a global organization, and we're resolving thousands of tickets and advisory hours per year. This slide gives a little bit of information around the differences between tickets and advisory support. We've given some common examples for questions that are asked for tickets, and that's a good way to phrase the difference between tickets and advisory support. Tickets are typically a single question, and advisory support is going to be more around a conversation that someone wants to have that goes an hour plus. So you can just take a look at common questions and common advisory topics here, and you can see sort of the difference between them. And then we want to talk about remote administration. Of course, this is only available to customers who are enterprise and above at this point, although we have a new offering which is Pro Plus with remote admin, so check the pricing guide to figure that out. But this is not available to everyone, so you want to make sure that you are clear on which subscription tiers have access to remote administration. And this slide just showcases what the benefits are and what's actually included. What will we do? And that's it. So you've gone through the life cycle, you've gone through educate through talking about the knowledge base, you've gone through develop through talking about Insight and the Cloud UI through free tier. You've gone through optimize, you've talked about Insight again, you've talked about all of the other great third-party tools that help with load testing and application performance monitoring, et cetera. Then you moved on to talking about extending the functionality that's on your website. You talked about Acquia Search, Malum, and tools like Visual Website Optimizer and LingoTech. And then you closed with maintenance and how great Acquia support is, and you also mentioned more of the functionality and Insight, remote administration, et cetera. So hopefully it's clear that what we're trying to do is paint a picture of an entire life cycle and really showcase the value that we provide along the way, rather than just 1, 2, or 3 things we do well or relying on support as the main piece of value. This really gives you an easy way to comprehensively show the value of the Acquia network. So let me just go through the appendix really quick. First, there are third-party tools back here. I mentioned there's a slide on each. And we're going to go through a couple slides that showcase subscription tiers, because we know a lot of people struggle with the pricing page, and does that do a good job explaining what's included? So we came up with some really easy slides for you guys to include here. And then last, the pricing guide is included. I'm not going to walk through it, but we did include it in the PowerPoint deck so that you can include it in your RFPs and have an editable version. So third-party tools, you can see we've got New Relic. Start with a few points on the value, screenshots, and then the last bullet on each page is the offer. So that's the same for all of them. They all look different, but they all have a little bit of information and information around what the offer is. So then we move into these subscription tier slides. And what we've done is there's 5 subscription tiers, and we basically provided a quote around what do we think embodies this level of subscription. So the developer subscription, we would say, Acquia provides you with the tools I need. So there's nothing here around support and that we've got your back. We're giving them access to tools, and that's the developer subscription. So you've got access to our tools, third-party tools, free trials. There are no support or advisory hours, no tickets available. So then we go to the next is professional subscription, and that's where we get that bump up, and Acquia provides me with tools and support. So I've got the same tools listed to the left-hand slide, but now I have 6 support tickets and 2 advisory hours, and these are all business response and no phone or email. So now I'm moving up a level to Pro Plus, and it's more about Acquia is there when I need them, because the big difference between the last subscription and this one is we'll actually do critical response 1-hour SLA for Pro Plus customers. So you have the same amount of tickets as Pro with 6 tickets and then 2 advisory hours, but if they're all critical, we'll handle them all within 1 hour. So you get a great SLA with this subscription. The next level is an enterprise subscription, and really we feel more at this subscription tier, this is where we have your back anytime, every day, and you have unlimited tickets, and you have 12 advisory hours, and you have that same great SLA you got on Pro Plus. Big difference being unlimited tickets and more advisory hours. And lastly, we have the Elite subscription, and at this point, we're really on your team. You know, there's some differences to the left-hand side of the slide here because you're getting a dedicated technical account manager. We're doing application assurance reviews, but you still have access to great tools. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see, of course, support tickets are unlimited, and you have between 12 and 60 advisory hours. So this is a broad range because there are a lot of offerings here. And then you have the highest SLA offered. So these slides just exist because you might want to be, in your presentation, giving a more comprehensive overview of what the different products are. So use these as you need them. And then the pricing guide is in the back. We go through Pro, Pro Plus, Enterprise. We go through the 15-month subscriptions, Acquia search limits that are included with each subscription tier, add-ons, and that's really it. So there is a comprehensive pricing deck that's available separately inside Google Drive. But this is the main pricing for the Acquia network that we could see you at any point in time perhaps wanting to refer to or include in a presentation. So the slides are at your disposal. And that's it for the Acquia network pitch deck overview.